I get it. You operate a business in the horse industry and you know you need to be online to grow your business, but you're overwhelmed at the process and you might not even have an idea where to start. Well, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're listening to the Digital Hoofprint podcast, a podcast that shares strategy, resources, and motivation for you to grow your horse business online. My name is Abriana, and I am a business coach, brand strategist, and designer that works with equine entrepreneurs who are struggling with their online presence. I transform grade horse businesses into industry unicorns. And if you're listening to this podcast, you must be ready to establish your digital hoofprint. Whether you're listening to this while cleaning stalls or after a long day working horses, I'm breaking down this process into digestible nuggets so you can take them and apply them to your business today. Thanks so much for listening again, and let's get into today's episode. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Digital Footprint Podcast. I'm Abriana, head unicorn in charge over at Black Unicorn Creative, and we help horse business owners establish authentic brand strategies and online marketing that fits into their daily lives. And I have a fellow brand designer here, Tara Moore from Farm and Fur Co on the show with us. I'm super excited to have this conversation and to see how life work balance is working in her life. So, welcome, Tara, to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited, especially about this topic.
Yes. So, give us a rundown. If people haven't seen your amazing work, let us know what you do and, how horses are in your life or how horses started to get into your life.
Sure. So, about 5 years ago now, I left my corporate PR job working in downtown Manhattan. I was doing corporate PR, specializing in crisis and reputation management, which, if you know me now, 5 years later, is the exact opposite type of person of who I am. And I'm way more casual than that type of buttoned up corporate environment. So I was offered an opportunity to take a barn manager position and move to a 45-acre horse farm back in my hometown. And I'm sure a lot of people at the time thought that that was insane to leave a New York City career to move to a farm, but it was my dream. And over the next 5 years or so, I picked up a couple little side hustles, just working at different barns, teaching beginner riding lessons. I did a lot of work with therapeutic riding programs. That's really how I got started into teaching as a PATH certified instructor. So there was always that fine balance of managing the barn and then managing my lesson schedule at other barns. But the more I got into teaching and networking with other local therapeutic riding centers, I noticed this huge gap between these centers not knowing how to present themselves online. The photography on their Instagram wasn't great, especially on their website, which the photography on your website is even more important than the photography on your social media. They did not have very clear messaging. I go to their websites and really have a hard time finding even the most basic information. So I got this crazy idea in the beginning of 2020. I had never used a professional camera before, but I left my program director job at the Therapeutic Riding Center. So I was managing the barn and was like, I want to try to make this photography thing happen. So I spent a lot of time just learning how to use a camera, picked up my first couple of clients who happened to be equestrian small businesses. And from there, it really snowballed into the full service business that I have today, which is photography, branding, and web design, because the three of those really go hand in hand. And now I have a very small team so that we can offer all of those things to our clients.
Yeah, that is awesome. And it's been amazing to see your transformation over the last year. I'm not entirely sure when I was first introduced to your company, but
It's just been amazing to see the growth and see the success that you've had with your clients.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So let's take it back a little bit and talk about how you kind of identified that corporate America was not the space for you. What kind of misalignment or imbalance did you kind of feel from there that had everybody thinking like, girl, what do you mean you're leaving? Like, what did that kind of look like?
Sure. So I think that imbalance started even before I took that job, because throughout my whole, even like all the way back to high school and college life, I was always walking this fine line, trying to figure out exactly where I fit in best, because my heart and passion told me it was with horses, but everything else, through college and the internships were pointing me in the direction of going into that traditional corporate America. So, for example, when I was first interning in New York, I kept my teaching job on the weekends. So I was always trying to figure out how horses could fit into my life. But I didn't realize at first that you could make money in the horse industry outside of just being a trainer. And I didn't, at that time, I knew for sure, even though I loved teaching, I did not want to own a boarding barn and have lessons be my primary source of income. So I actually forget what your original question was, but I hope that kind of answered it.
Yeah. I mean, it was, about identifying when that imbalance started, or when you saw that it things weren't aligning.
Yes.
And you're exactly right. There's a lot of people start on that path. Like, you see in these Facebook groups and forums, like, 18-year-olds, hey, I want to teach lessons. What should I do next? And then like the peanut gallery rain parade comes in, like, you're not gonna make any money. Hey, you should do something else. Go to college. And it's like, yo, like, really, you can hone these different skills like we have, and still be in this industry. You could do anything and say that you do it for equestrians, and boom, you are in this industry. So, instead 100%. Of that exclusionary, like, this is the only path you could take, or this is what I did and I didn't like it. It's like, let's
and it's
talk about the opportunity.
Yes, and the risk taking too, because it's scary to take a risk and leave something that seems like a sure career. So like for me, when I moved onto the farm over 5 years ago, I knew it was for sale. So that already was a big risk, but because it was my passion, it was a risk that I was willing to take. Luckily, things haven't really moved, but it's definitely tough. And I just remember commuting to the city and sitting in that office, and the people in the office could not have been any nicer. It was a fantastic experience in that sense, but I always felt like I, number one, didn't really belong and couldn't be myself, because here I was, this girl who'd wear like blue jeans and boots on the weekend, but I had to put on something that just did not feel like me. So it really worked. I feel very lucky to have had the opportunity to make that transition.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes, when we do the safe thing, we do the thing that it's like, okay, this is not my passion. Well, let me bring it back. I think it's okay for your job not to be your passion. Thanks, friend. I think it's okay for both, for you to be able to have something that you're passionate about, even if your job makes the money that supports that passion, And so
Absolutely.
with these conversations, I just want to reiterate the fact that, there is no box. This is not, us saying, you love horses, pursue your passion, your job should be horses. And this is also not us saying, do something that makes you money because who's going to pay for the horses? This is simply us saying that there is no box. You have that flexibility, like you said, to take these risks and to change your mind. That is
Yes.
that is
Oh,
the part of
absolutely.
this.
And to not follow, yeah, and to not follow something that is so traditional.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 And so now that you've gone from this corporate position, you started managing this barn, and say, you guys are struggling on a couple fronts, and online is one of them. How do you switch into, like, now I'm going to be an entrepreneur? This is not, I'm just going to take, well, it may have started off as I'm going to take pretty pictures and, see if that works. But how did you kind of shift into that entrepreneurial mindset to say, not only is this something new I'm going to try, but I want to make a business out of it?
Yeah, so there was a lot of imposter syndrome those first few months. And honestly, there still is. I think whenever you're growing and entering into something new that you haven't done before, there's always that little sense of imposter syndrome, you know? So I think in the beginning, I was very quiet about it so that I could let myself take my time learning the photography side, because a big part of it for me too was it wasn't like yes, I had corporate experience, but I wasn't coming off of a career where I was doing this for like an equestrian company, or I wasn't working, like I wasn't on the social media team of an equestrian company that everybody knew, to where that transition into the business world on the equestrian side really made a lot of sense in the beginning. So it was tricky to battle that imposter syndrome in the beginning. But I will say the more I worked hands-on with clients and the more I started to learn exactly what they wanted out of a business like mine, the easier it became, because rather than me saying, well, this is exactly what I'm going to offer, I took a lot of clues from the local people that I started working with and let them tell me what they were seeing in the industry that they really needed. And that helped a lot. And I also think I was pretty ethical with the way I started pricing things. Like, for example, in the beginning, I did a ton of work for free because a lot of it was experimental for me. And then I just gradually increased my pricing and grew from there. And another thing that was a huge help was that as I started to add people to the team, I started adding people that had skills that I didn't have, but I knew would give us the ability to offer full service.
Yeah, that's major. What do they say? New levels have new devils, or something like that.
Oh,
Like
totally.
when you said imposter syndrome is not this one thing that you get and then you achieve it. Like you get over it. Imposter syndrome is that thing that it's gonna follow you, as you continue to level up and have new experiences and get into new situations. You're always gonna say, "Ooh, I'm excited. This is great. What did I do to get here? Okay, am I like?" It's like, but
Yes.
you're here. You are here, and even if it took that, doing things for free, or working with businesses at a lower cost to experiment, to be able to figure out what it is they really need. If you don't have some sort of imposter syndrome, it's Probably because you're not doing anything.
Yes. And I think anytime you challenge yourself, you should feel a little bit scared, like a healthy amount of scared.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so when we look at, you know, the things that we've done in the beginning, because, you know, we're in the same line of work. Um, I've done also a lot of work for free. And that was kind of how I, you know, informed some of the decisions that I made about what I continue to do. Um, but like you said, going back to what people said they needed, let's talk about that for a second, because a lot of times we lead with what we think we want to do, or what we feel like is necessary. Like, this is the thing I identified and I'm going to do that thing. And then we start to see either the need really wasn't there, or that's truly not the need, you know?
Yep.
That's how it was for me. Like, I'm going to do logos. And I was like, wait, like the questions I need answered for me to produce a good logo, you can't answer, you know? Or the business is no longer in business after 6 months, and although you paid me, I'm still personally invested in your success. Like, I'm a little upset you're not using what I made. So let's talk about how we make these decisions based on the feedback that we get, right?
Yeah, definitely. So in the beginning, I originally wasn't planning on offering web design. I was just going to do photography and kind of brand visuals. And I had my friend Ashley from White Stallion Studio come on to do the logo and graphic design side, because I had never used Photoshop, Illustrator. I had no real skills in that in that realm in the very beginning. So as I started promoting a little bit more that I was doing branding in terms of like the brand strategy and the messaging and the logo design, it was a pretty common question that I would always get: do you offer web design also? And in hindsight, it makes so much sense, because the three of those things do fit together so seamlessly. And in the beginning, I also was afraid to jump into kind of the social media strategy content creation side, because I never really considered myself a social media expert. Even for myself, I never on my personal page used social media very often, but that's something that a lot of clients needed help with. So we decided to add on branded Canva templates to all of our packages. And now I have a little ebook that comes along with all of our clients to just even walk clients through how to set up their business Instagram. It's sometimes just simple stuff like that. So that's just a couple of examples of things that clients ask for. And now I do a feedback form. Every time I close out a project, they get a form and say, what do you wish was included in your project? What do you wish we offered that we didn't offer? What could we have done better? Stuff like that. And even still, social media is the biggest thing that comes up in that feedback.
Yeah.
More social media training.
Yeah. I feel like, and you may feel this way too with that. It's like, you know, you have this offering and you have this expertise, but when you know you're done, you don't really want the client to be feeling like, okay, what's next? And that's probably how you got into the, you know, the web design. It's like, okay, you got the branding, you got the photos, boom, and they're like, great, now how?
Yeah, because it all has to be updated anyway.
Exactly. And you know, the fact that there is strategy behind it, there is intention behind it, sometimes that scares people, you know. And so for me personally, I see people, they're, want to come for a website, and it's like, okay, so what have we thought about as far as our branding? What conversations have we had? And they haven't had those conversations. So, it's kind of scary to dive into, why am I doing this? What kind of people do I want to serve? What is my expertise? But that can be kind of scary for people.
Yes. And in the beginning, I didn't know enough about web design to even know how important that whole copywriting process was. So I would just take a lot of the copy from the client's old website, or if they didn't have a website at all, I was trying to come up with copy for them, not even realizing that that is a completely separate business that some people just specialize in, which is really, really cool. So by no means am I a copywriter, but by knowing the right questions to ask your clients, like now we go through a whole copywriting template with our clients so that they can fill in some of those answers by us asking them the right questions. That has been so helpful too, because a lot of the messaging comes from that, and developing that based on who exactly in the equestrian industry you're speaking to. Because even though the equestrian industry is its own niche, there's all these little sub niches within it, like the Western side, the English side, or if people just want to do like high-end show barns, or just want to target more like backyard casual barns.
Yeah. And there are two things that are okay. One, you don't have to serve everybody. You don't get more clients by speaking to everybody. And two, you don't have to be the expert that wrote a 20-page white paper on this subject. You just have to be 5 steps ahead of your audience.
Absolutely. I love that explanation.
Yeah. I mean, and offering Canva templates and offering, some social assets, you're going to get that feedback from your clients on, how this performed, how comfortable they feel with this, all of this feedback, which informs your next decision, your next offering.
Definitely.
How you grow that portion of, your services. And so I feel like a lot of times, we get to the point, if we're like, I don't know enough about this, but do you know more than your audience? At least spark that conversation and get that feedback.
Yep. Definitely. And I think too, I work with a lot of clients who are launching a business for the very first time. So that does give me the ability to help them with Instagram, because I can 100% help someone when it's from the ground up. But when you already have a major audience and you're thinking about taking things to the next level, that's when I would say, you know what, this is really outside of my realm of expertise. Who can we find to bring in on this project who specializes in this? So it's nice when you can have those honest conversations. And that's also how our side of the creative equestrian community gets built, by chatting with each other and being open to collaborating on stuff like that.
Yes. And before we started recording, we were talking about how we kind of have these cycles of creativity, and sometimes it's just not coming, and then one day it's like, boom, actually I have 50 million ideas. Do you want to hear all of them? let's
it all hits you at once.
Let's talk about that, because when we talk about like this need for balance, a lot of time that's it, for creatives. That's like, there's I'm not fulfilled, I don't know. And then it's like, I just busted out 3 projects, in a week,
Yep.
and now I'm done, you know. So
Yeah.
let's talk about those cycles.
As a professional in the horse industry, we are always looking for ways to improve our craft. As a business owner, it's our goal to build a business that supports our dream lifestyle. That's why I developed the Equipreneur Planner. This planner is a snapshot of your business from your offers to your online marketing. Whether you're looking to stand out in an oversaturated market or you need to audit your current business operations, this planner has the resources to guide you in that process. After spending an entire year developing this signature planning system, I've made it available to equine entrepreneurs just like you. Give yourself permission to change your life. Go to www.blackunicorncreative.com/planner to sign up for the waitlist.
Yeah, it's tough when your business kind of depends on you continually doing client projects, because like we were saying earlier, I will have these creative bursts of energy that sometimes will last for like 2 weeks, and it's like I'm working in this big creative sprint. But when it drops, it almost feels a little bit manic in a sense, where I'm like, go, 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 like up until, 10, 11 o'clock designing, and the ideas are just flowing. And then when you get that drop, it's so disappointing. And there's this little sense of panic that sets in, because you're like, okay, I have all these timelines scheduled and someone else is depending on me to be creative. But at the same time, when you are in one of those lows, it's hard to produce the quality that you can when you're on that kind of high. Not to let's say it that way, but it's true. So, and I even find it's a little tough just balancing that with my barn work, because we have boarders who contact me all hours of the day. And I have a couple students here and another trainer who teaches here, the farm owner. So it's a lot of clients in two different businesses, which can also be a little bit draining. So it's really tough to push through those creative lulls. But to keep projects on time, we have to find a way to do it.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of times having that team is helpful.
Yes.
Because likely we're all not going through the lull at the same time, so it's
Yes.
like, give me some motivation, or like, what do you see that I could be doing better? What do you see as far as like the design goes that I didn't capture? And having that feedback and having that conversation with someone you trust is a major cheat code for entrepreneurship, period.
Definitely. Yes. So it's nice. So I have spent a lot of time trying to figure out those systems within the business, so that when I do kind of have those drops, I can quickly send a note to Ashley, who's our graphic designer, and say, do you mind just making these templates, like if you have the time to do it? And we kind of do that for each other, just so that we can keep things moving along. And it's nice because I can plan things out so that I don't kind of overwork myself, because I always kind of know what's coming next. So that's been really helpful too, because
Right.
there's different stages of projects where I just start to hand things off to other team members, and then they will finish something so that I can start the next client project, and kind of goes on a cycle from there. So that's been helpful too.
Yeah. I know particularly for women, people with a uterus, a lot of times those cycles can come with our time of the month. And so that is work for me. Usually my energy on projects is what tells me, I'm like, what's today? Okay.
The internal reminder.
I'm like, okay, perfect, great. I know what my next week is gonna be like, and it's not fighting that. We can't fight biology. Like, we're not gonna win ever. But knowing and strategically planning some things, as much as you can, say, maybe not starting projects at the end of the month if we know that
Yep.
that's what, I have a friend who I actually just interviewed last week, Brittany. She runs lesson programs, but she does it every 8 weeks. You
Yes,
do
I'm familiar
8
with
weeks
her.
on
Yep,
and 1
she
week
does the
off.
therapeutic program. Yeah.
1 week off, and she's like, by week 6, we're like,
Yep.
but you get that second win knowing that you only have 2 weeks left.
Yes.
And so when we're looking at life work balance, it's working in those things that we know we need and we know that are gonna work for us. The more that you actually do, you're able to say, okay, this is a pattern that I'm seeing. So how can I work that into my schedule, into how I operate, into my team, into my system, so that I can account for that? And that's okay.
Yes, definitely. And I think one of the hardest parts about being an entrepreneur is that feeling of when you're not working, you're not progressing and you're not making money. And that always used to make me feel guilty for taking those breaks when I knew that I needed them. So I finally got out of the habit of just trying to push through and feeling like I'm kind of half-assing it, but I'm getting it done, to now, if I need a day, I take a day. And then I can double time it when I feel better,
Yeah, absolutely. 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 Well, I am so absolutely thankful for your time here today, your expertise. I love your work, and I love seeing people starting to have these conversations about branding, about messaging, about how you show up, because a lot of people like the visual stuff when it comes to brand development, without understanding that it's the meat, it's the ugly, behind the scenes that really makes those visuals mean something. So yeah, tell people where
Definitely.
they can find you, where they can connect with you, and anything if they're interested in your services.
Sure. So you can find me on Instagram at Farm and Fur Co. And I always tell people it's FIR. And my website is farmandfurco.com.
All right, Sarah, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. And I agree. I am so excited to have a conversation with another equestrian creative that understands, because I don't get to do that often enough. So thank you for creating the space for that.
Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as I enjoyed putting it together. Don't forget, subscribe to this podcast as well as leave a review and let us know how this episode has helped you in your horse business. Don't forget to connect with us over on social media, Facebook or Instagram at Black Unicorn Creative. See you guys on the next episode.